Hello, fellow fighters. Welcome to Volcanoe National Park. I'm here with legendary sword fighter William Frisbee.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
We're going to be doing an interview and then a 10-point death match after the interview. So stay tuned and be ready for blood. Not really, but we're trying to hook you. Hello, fellow fighters. Welcome to the campfire. And I'm here with Bill Frisbee, a legendary sword fighter, and he's going to fill us in on his journey and how he discovered historic European martial arts.
Thanks. Thank you. First off, aloha, everybody. Hawaii is right here. I'm relatively new to Hawaii, but I've been sword fighting for a while, so let me talk about that. So I started in the Japanese sword arts many, many years ago when I was in Okinawa. I studied that for about 7 years. When I moved back to the Boston area, unfortunately, there was nobody really at my level. So I started experimenting with a group called Society for Creative Anachronisms. They're a group that likes to hit each other with rattanwood swords. They really weren't focused on historical aspects of it too much. And after about a couple of years of that, I managed to find a group called Kunstbruder out of Boston, Massachusetts, that was just starting up. And they had this really cool thing called HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts. And the rest, they say, is history.
What do you think the most compelling aspects of HEMA are?
For me, it's definitely the fact that we are experiencing a true martial art as accurately as we can reproduce it in the days of people who are actually using swords. It's an amazing thing to think about it. You know, we're talking about martial art that started in like the 1350s, 1360s, and survived all the way up until about 1650. And unfortunately for us, we didn't know a lot about it until very recently when we started discovering what the Germans call fight books. And we were able to piece together a relatively complex martial art where people were actually using it to defend themselves. No different than your Japanese martial arts or your Korean or any other martial art. It was just, we had to rediscover it because the Europeans threw this away when guns came out. And it's been a really dynamic thing for us to experiment with. What is this picture showing? What do they mean by put your foot here? So for me, the historical aspects of this martial art were the big draw for it because I'm a history nerd. Who's not? And it was just something I fell into and I have enjoyed ever since.
So Bill, how do you stay motivated?
Well, you know, I've been in the sport art, the art and the martial art now for close to 20 years. Motivation for me is being able to put the gear on and fight. It's a dynamic thing where you never know who you're going to fight. You never know what you're going to learn. You never know what the person you've been fighting for 15 years with might have learned something new. And it leads to a very interesting exchange of the swords. And so that's what keeps me motivated. Not just stay motivated, but keeps me motivated is the ability to continue to learn, even from somebody you've been fighting with for 15, 20 years. It's always something new coming. Somebody's always changing up something. So it's very much a changing art. Like, oh, I can't hold my sword there anymore. I'm going to lose my hands. So I think that's probably one of the most motivating factors.
So your motivation is the fact that the art keeps changing and you have to stay on the top of your game. How do you find yourself staying on the top of your game? What does your training regimen look like?
It's a really good question, and it's something that I really try to emphasize with all my students. You have to practice every single day. For me, it's practicing my footwork, you know, making sure that I am doing my proper footwork, but it's also doing what I call 1,000 cuts. And what 1,000 cuts very simply is the Meisterhau, which in German is the master cuts. I literally cut the air 1,000 times every single morning, even when it's raining up. Get on the lanai, have a cup of coffee, you know, I do it barefoot so I can feel my feet when I'm moving, and just go through 1,000 cuts every single day. And you know what? After 1,000 cuts every single day, you build up the muscle memory, but you also notice when you're doing things just a little bit wrong. So that for me is the best motivation of training, that daily impetus. Keep on cutting, even when you don't feel good. Get out there, do 500 cuts. When you're dog tired, do 100 cuts. Just every single day, practice your martial art.
All right. So instead of death by 1,000 cuts, it's life by 1,000 cuts.
That's actually a really good way of putting it. Absolutely agree.
Yes. Sword fighting is a dangerous art, lots of injuries. How do you avoid those injuries, and do you have any advice for folks at home to do the same?
Okay. The most important thing about a martial art is, I like to say, is don't break your toys. Your friends are your toys. We practice this art as safely as possible. Yes, you're swinging a sword around, but whenever you're sparring, put a mask on, for goodness sake. You only have 2 eyeballs and you only have 1 life. Don't risk it, okay? Wear gauntlets. You know, back in the day when I started this decades ago, we didn't have the protective gear we had then. Now, excuse me. What I wore was kendo coat, and kendo coat are really not effective against stopping a steel blade. So my very first tournament, I ended up having 2 broken fingers. It was not a fun ride back from Maryland to Boston, okay, because I was in pain. So, you know, there's always going to be a risk associated with any martial art, any sport, anything you do. You have a risk walking this cliff here at night, but you mitigate that risk. You wear your safety gear, you know, like, you know, I have my knee pads in here, I have a cup on. When I put my jacket on, I make sure it's at least 350 newtons, so my thrusts aren't going to be as damaging to me. There's padding in here. My mask is new. It's not dented, you know. Always make sure your gear is in good shape. Always make sure you're paying attention to new gear that's coming out that might be a little better than the last one. Our gauntlets now are fantastic. They give you great protection. They give you great mobility. And you know what? We don't have the number of people with broken fingers and hands that we used to have when we started this martial art. And it's really improved for us. So, you know, checking up on the gear, staying in touch with the bigger vendors that are really supportive of our groups, and just wear it. Is it hot? Yeah, you can see I'm sweating through. We're both sweating through our shirts, but you know what? Neither of us got hurt, and you know, at the end, we got a little bit more into it. We got a little bit more violent because we were enjoying our art, but we were still safe. We still had masks on. We still had gauntlets on, and every time you cross over to somebody, put your protective gear on. It takes 5 minutes to do, and trust me, the first time you get hurt, you're going to ask yourself, why I didn't put my helmet on. Do it.
Bill, sword fighting can be terrifying. Someone coming at you with a sword and a skull painted on their mask does not leave you with a warm, fuzzy feeling. How do you handle that fear in that moment?
That's actually a really good question. I think it's something that all martial artists, doesn't matter what martial art you're in, is always facing. The minute you step up to defend yourself or fight, there's going to be a fear in you. And fear is natural. It's what we do with that fear that makes us a good or a bad martial artist. Those of us that take that fear, swallow it down, and use it to say, okay, I'm scared, but I've learned. I know how to defend myself, or I know what this person is going to try to do. I know how to protect myself against that. I know how to defend against that. I know how to step out of the way of that. It allows us to bring that fear level down to something that's manageable. There are some people who simply can't do that, and they take that fear, and you'll watch them just, you know, they're a mess out there because they're so afraid of getting hit that they don't listen to their body. They don't listen to the art. They don't listen to what they've been taught over the years by their instructors. So fear is always going to be real. Like you said, somebody coming after you with a 3.5 foot to 4 foot long sword that weighs 3.5 pounds, that's being swung at about 45 miles an hour. It's not fun to get hit with, but guess what? You have a sword too. And if you listen to your body and you listen to your instructors, you'll be able to defend against it. Be afraid. Always be afraid. Make it that big, and then use it to guide you through your fights. You'll do much better that way.
How do you feel when we're talking about sparring with your friends and handling that energy versus the pressure that comes with tournament fighting? When you're in that moment, you spent all this time training, you've flown to the destination, and your body isn't responding how you want it to. How do you overcome that moment?
Sometimes it's a beer after the tournament. Sometimes it's 2 beers after the tournament. Honestly, it's the fact that we're sharing a martial art. You know, in HEMA, there are 2 distinct flavors. There's the German and there's the Italian, or, you know, and when I'm fighting an Italian sword fighter, it's a very different ballgame for me because I don't understand that art as well as I understand Germans. So for me, it's being able to understand, I still have a sword in my hand. I still have 2 feet and I have eyeballs. I'm watching what that person's doing. And so again, yeah, the fear's there. I don't know what they're doing, but there's only a certain number of ways that sword's going to come at you. Learn how to defend against that. If it's coming at you 100 different ways, you learn 100 different ways of avoiding the sword. So again, be afraid at first, but learn that there are little tiny chunks of knowledge that come into you, and then you can take that knowledge and mitigate that risk and that fear down to something manageable. But again, you know, you get all amped up, go shake hands with that person you just fought against and go have a beer at the end of the night. It's awesome. It's great to finish everything. Right. If you're over 21,
You know, a lot of folks look down on HEMA, historic martial arts, and say it's not a real sport. It's not a real martial art because it has a lost lineage. What are your feelings on that?
They're wrong. I mean, it's plain and simple. Historical European martial arts. Everything we're doing, especially on the Germanic and the Italian side, are taken directly from, I'm going to use a German term, Fecht book or fight book, that was used to educate people, usually the middle class, on how to defend themselves and how to become effective sword fighters for a reason, self-defense. So what our core of our martial art is a historic martial art. It's no different than, you know, Japanese sword arts or Chinese sword arts or any other sword art for that matter. It is a true martial art. Are we still learning about it? Yeah, of course we are, because it was forgotten for 300 plus years. But it's still a martial art. And the more we practice, the more we look at the fight book, like I said earlier, and look at those pictures and understand why are they holding the sword this way, or why are they standing this way? And then it clicks into place and it becomes more and more of an effective martial art. You know, I tell all my people, the day they come to my school, the first time, I'm going to teach you martial arts. Can you fight in tournaments? Absolutely fight in tournaments. But the most important thing to understand is I'm teaching you a martial art that was literally designed to kill people. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. A sword fight is a deadly thing. It's going to end only one of two ways. You die or they die. 99% of the time, you didn't get little injured and limp off. You died. So it's very important to understand this is a very true martial art. And to treat it as anything but a true martial art, I think it's disrespectful for all those people who actually lived and breathed by it.
Mm-hmm. So how did HEMA change you as a person?
I think probably the biggest thing HEMA did for me is put me into a touch with a lot of like-minded people. In today's world, especially as I work in cybersecurity, we become very insular. We really do. In martial arts, especially, can still maintain that insular where you're in a school and this is the school you learn, this is the school you're at all the time. HEMA, especially when I started, was just too small to be that little world. So, you know, I was always driving 2, 3, 4, 5 states down to participate in a tournament, or fly out to the other side of the country to participate in a tournament. I had people flying up to participate in my tournaments that I used to run. So for me, it became really this really good group of camaraderie of people, like-minded people that were really wanting to learn this martial art, wanting to push this martial art to way beyond where I ever thought it would go. And for the most part, I think we still maintain that. We're still really looking how to make this martial art more popular, get it out there. You know, we got lucky, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago when the New York Times did an article on us. You know, Game of Thrones was blowing up. Everybody wanted to know about swords, and the New York Times came out and did this really, really good article about my sister's school in New York City. And our art blew up. I mean, we went from having 10 to 15 students a week into a class to having 30, 40, 50 students. And a lot of those people stayed in the program. So for me, it moved me from this very much this thing, okay, I'm going to study this book and I'm going to learn this martial art, to, hey, you know, Joe, how do you do this? Want to scratch your head? He's like, you know, it's a good question. I don't know. Let me ask this person. Instead, all of a sudden, now you're sitting down 5, 6 people at a table, or even better, in the middle of a gym with your swords out, saying, okay, if I did this, why would they do this? And it really taught me to listen to other people, not just listen to them, but take what they're saying and put it into active use. So for me, it opened and broadened my horizons in a way I never thought possible.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So to summarize, like, we live a very insular life, and HEMA pushed you out of your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
got you out of your box,
Mm-hmm.
got you interacting with other people.
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like we're looking at a therapeutic level of like Dungeons and Dragons, where it gets people out of their like box. And, you know, yeah, I like that.
So I want to share a story about that. So we used to have this big event in Maryland every year called Long Point. The last one was in 2019, but it had gone on for 7 years, and it was a really, really large event. So for the last 3 years of it, I used to go and I used to teach how to fight in armor, and we used to do an armored fighting tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So the first year I came in 3rd place, and I lost to a guy who literally wrote the book on fighting in armor, like literally wrote the book. So it was actually a pretty good learning experience. Second year, I packed my car up and I started driving to Maryland. Stopped to get food. So I broke into my car, took all the boxes out of the back of the car,
Oh no!
included my armor. So I got to got to Long Point, depressed, in tears. You know, a $15,000 suit of armor gets stolen. I guarantee people had no idea what it was. They just thought it was metal and they could sell it for scraps. Word got around that event pretty quick, and you know, everybody was really respectful and was like, sorry, you know, blah blah blah. Well, little did I know that I had an armor ferry. What was the armor ferry? The armor ferry was every single person who attended Long Point threw in money, sometimes a lot of money, so I could go buy a new suit of armor.
Oh wow.
So we're talking some people I've known for years, some people I just met for the first time, but everybody threw money in to a huge pot. So I walked out of there with enough money to order and pay for a new set of armor.
Nice.
So it wasn't just push you out of your comfort zone. It really did give me a new family, and a family of respect and a family of sharing, that even to this day, I still talk with these people, even though I'm over here way in Hawaii. You know, it's worked out really, really well.
I like that. I like that quite a bit. I notice, you know, there are some groups that aren't pushing respect and chivalry, and I'm really not cool with that. I really want folks to be respectful, because somebody's holding a sword.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, like, how sassy are you going to be to someone who's holding a sword?
And that's exactly it. I mean, we need to remember, you know, our martial art came from the ideals of knighthood. You know, if you read the German instruction manuals, the fight books, Lichtenauer opens it with, you know, be nice to one another, respect women, learn, enjoy life, worship who you want to worship, but be a nice person, because you never know who's going to be at the other end of that sword that you're going up against. It could be your last time, and why not? In today's world, why be rude? Why be arrogant? Why, enjoy life, live, enjoy, share, and be nice to one another. Bill and Ted sounded better than I thought.
Well, hey, Bill, thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate you and spending your time with us and sharing HEMA with the world. Yeah. Are you ready to fight the honey badger?
Let's fight the honey badger.
Let's do it. All right, fellow fighters, we're here. We're ready to do some sparring. We're going to go with a 10-point minus tournament. You can only lose points. Last man standing wins the day. Best of luck to you, Sir William. Okay. All right, I got to break through this guy's guard.
Thank you.
Don't run off the cliff.
Don't turn my back to you either. Come this way more. Good.
We have wasted 9 of our life points, and here we are at the final exchange.
Oh, good shot. Right over.
You got me in the face.
Oh. Did I get you in the face?
You did.
Oh.
So
we killed each other a lot.
We both died.
Yeah.
All right. So in sword fighting, you win 50% of the time, and you die 50% of the time.
And dying is not good.
It's not really an option. I mean, it is.
Not an option. I don't want to die. I don't know about you.
Try not to. And that is 10 points to the death. We're here at Volcanoe National Park. We'll check in with you later, or next time, or something like that.